Today I'm live in Rockdale County where the foreclosure auction is taking place, and you will see me as well as other people bidding on foreclosure properties. I'm going to explain what the foreclosure process actually is and how it works. And if you are going to stay from the beginning to the end, you'll see the actual live bidding, and I will explain some of the various details that go into successfully getting a property at the foreclosure auction, all the things that you need to do, and the things that you need to be careful of. So stay tuned with this auction. I'm Arvelyn Lewis. I sell real estate.
2,917 with 14 cents. Looking for 114. One second, please. I opened the bidding. I'm looking for 114. I have a remote bid for 114.
Okay, so I hope that you had an opportunity to get a little bit of feel of what the foreclosure auction looks like. I was there and I was trying to get a good video of myself doing the auction, but I was caught up in the auction and didn't even know what my camera was doing. And when I finally looked down at it, it wasn't doing anything, but I did get the property. So that was what I was there for. That's what's important. Now, I told you I was going to tell you, I'm trying to get comfortable in this chair, I was going to tell you how to be successful at the foreclosure auction. So I want to, before I get to that, tell you what the foreclosure is. Now, foreclosure, the actual auction, is the ending of business, ending the contract of basically whatever contract. Let me say that first, because it doesn't actually have to be the contract between the bank and the buyer. It could be a mechanics lien, it could be a tax lien. There could be all sorts of contracts that could cause a foreclosure. It could be a homeowners association that has caused a foreclosure, but most typically it's the bank ending the relationship with Mr. and Mrs. Smith. We are no longer in business. And in Georgia, you do not have to go before a judge to actually do that. Did you know that? If you own a home, I'm sure the closing attorney informed you that in the state of Georgia, you do not have to go before a judge to execute foreclosure. But most people on the day of closing to buy their house, they're so excited, they just sign here, they sign here, and sign here. And you really miss all the things that the attorney is telling you that are important, except that long amount of money that you have to make. But anyway, let me stay on target here. So it could be that you're getting a mechanics lien foreclosed. That's a possibility, where you have a vendor come to your house and fix something, and you never complete the contract that you've entered into to close out this deal. So then they may opt to foreclose. In any case, let's first talk about pre-foreclosure, because I want to make sure that you understand all the various forms of foreclosure. Pre-foreclosure is that state where you just kind of stopped, or I'm not going to say you because you're going to pay your mortgage. They stopped paying for whatever it is. They stopped paying. They stopped paying the mortgage, they stopped paying the taxes, they stopped paying something. And that contract is now coming up for end. So that's a foreclosure. In pre-foreclosure, they are waving their hand. They're saying, okay, I'm getting ready to sue you. Okay, I'm getting ready to do something. And then it's come to the point of foreclosure. So now it has been advertised in the MLS, possibly on a news site or in a newspaper, most typically. Somewhere it's been advertised that the owner of the contract is going to foreclose on this property. If it's the mortgage company, they've probably been in contact with the person that they've entered a contract with, saying, listen, you have the opportunity to complete a short sale And a lot of people, I've done a lot of short sales for homeowners to say, okay, bank, I can't do it anymore. I don't have a job. My husband died, my cat's sick, whatever the situation is, and I can't own up to this contract. And they execute a short sale. These are typically done when the house is under the mortgage or the market value. Like right now, everything is above market value. All the prices are really high, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense to do a short sale. Now, if you have 2 or 3 loans on the house, or you've been taking equity out of the house, then you might have a reason to do a short sale because the value is already taken out. That might be a short sale, and that's in a pre-foreclosure status that you can do the short sale. That's one thing that's pre-foreclosure. Now we move on to, it's actually the foreclosure date in Georgia. It's the first Tuesday of the month. You go to the courthouse. It's actually done on the courthouse steps, and someone who is representing the attorney for the bank is usually going to come with their numbers that they are looking to get on this property. It probably includes the attorney's fees and the actual outstanding amount that is owed on that property. So they open up the bid at whatever that number is. It's a property, they're looking for $100,000. I'm looking for $100,000. That's what you saw on the previous portion of this video. They're looking for a specific amount. And then all the people who were there, they drive that price up to whatever the final bid amount is. You saw her one more last call, and then it's sold with whatever the highest dollar or highest bidder has offered. Now, post foreclosure, that's what most people are more familiar with, where it's already been foreclosed on the courthouse steps, but they were not able to secure that number, and it went back to the bank. It's now the bank's. We've ended the business, but no one bought it, because the first Tuesday of the month is where the official act of ending business with that previous owner, that's an act. If we get a buyer, great, the bank is done with it. But if you don't get a buyer, then it goes into post foreclosure, where it's on the open market for sale. And you've heard that. You've probably seen them back in 2008, 2007, 9, 10, 11. I bet you bought one. There's probably a few people who were watching this video that bought a foreclosure because there were tons of them. So now what you are interested in or thinking about is doing it right at the courthouse steps. I'll give you a couple of stories of what could possibly happen if you're able to. I won't tell you that first. Let me just first say, you can acquire a list of the properties that are going to be foreclosed. You can get a list. Most people are buying the list because it has more accuracy. Or you can go on the MLS and look for things that are in pre-foreclosure. There usually aren't going to be a lot there. You can also look at, I think it's Redfin that usually has them posted. The thing about it though is if you find those properties, there's a really good chance that the person, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, we'll call them Mr. and Mrs. Smith, they have the opportunity to redeem them during the pre-foreclosure state. Yeah, it's still their property, so whatever it is that they owe, they can just pay it, and then it's no longer in foreclosure. It's done. It's still their house. So when you're researching and trying to find it, you could be looking for something that is not actually going to be foreclosed on that first Tuesday because it still belongs to Mr. and Mrs. Smith. But if you're doing the research, these are some of the things that you want to look into. Are there other liens on the property, like a mechanic's lien or a tax lien or a utility bill or something? Because there could be other liens on the property. And if you buy it and there's a second lien on the property, you just bought yourself a bunch of liens. And you don't want that. So there's some research that you have to do before you take on the task of buying foreclosures, because there may be other things that are affiliated with that property. So it's a risky undertaking, and you want to be able to complete all of the research before you start jumping in thinking, oh, it's only $6,000. Yeah, that's the second. The first is still in possession of the property. Or there's a $5,000 lien. Yeah, that's a mechanic's lien that's being foreclosed, not the actual property. So here's the story I wanted to tell you. So there was this one gentleman, he was at the courthouse steps. He made the purchase of the property, bid it up to whatever the number, I don't remember, I think it was like $80,000 or something like that. So he's thinking he bought a property for $80,000. And then on the other side of the courtyard, the actual yard, because sometimes they're on this side and then there's other auctions going on the other side, they could be going on simultaneously. They auctioned the same property on the other side. The first lien, the primary mortgage was being auctioned on the other side. He, for $80,000, bought the second, where the primary was also being auctioned for $200,000. Where did that leave him? Out of $80,000. So you have to really do the research before you think that you're actually getting a great deal, because you could be just giving away money. And that's a bad thing, right? You would agree that's a bad thing. Now, you don't get to inspect them either. So when you find one that you like, you got to do a drive-by, but it may actually still be occupied by a tenant, could be occupied by Mr. and Mrs. Smith. They could still be living there. So if you buy it, you don't really have the opportunity to inspect it to make sure it's a healthy house. And I've heard some stories. This is the one I'll share with you. They were able to secure the property on the courthouse steps, got inside thinking it was a great house, and when they went to start changing out things, the water continued to back up. Everything, all the water backed up. And the reason was Mr. and Mrs. Smith were mad and they poured cement down the drains. Yeah, that's not a good thing. You'd agree that's not a good thing, right? So yeah, you have to, be concerned about the possibility that what you're buying on the courthouse steps might not be what it seems. Lastly, you're not able to complete a title search, and the title search would reveal all the various areas that other people have liens on the property, just like I'm just discussing. There could be tax liens that would be revealed in title search. There could be mechanics liens that might be revealed in the title search. Uncle Joe might still have some ownership in this house. And all of these things, when you're doing a regular transaction, they are revealed in the title search. But if you have not done or gotten that done before you make the purchase, then you purchased all of the liens that may be on that property. That doesn't sound like a good thing, right? Okay, so lastly, when you are buying on the courthouse steps, you want to be real familiar with what the actual value of the property is. So it's looking really good to be $100,000, right? And you get there and there's other people that are bidding, right? So if you bid it up to $150,000, it still seems like it's a great property. Well, not so much if you've bought the other liens, or not so much if you've got some concrete in the drain, or maybe not so good if it's only worth $160,000 to begin with. So you've got to be very familiar with what the actual value of the property is, because you can't buy it with a loan. Did I tell you that part? Okay. So when you go to the courthouse steps to buy real estate in the auction, you have to have cash. They're not going to allow you to get a loan from the bank and come because the bank requires an inspection. The bank requires an appraisal. The bank wants to make sure that the loan that they're giving you is going to be equitable title. And if you don't have all of that in place, you can't get the loan from the bank. So on the courthouse steps, you have to come with cash. Right then, right there on the spot. Now, it doesn't have to be, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but it does have to be a certified funds check where they will be able to redeem this for cash and completely close out the debt. That is correct. So those are some of the things to be concerned about when you're thinking about buying on the courthouse steps. And if you're able to get through all of that, then you've probably made a great investment. It is a good way to earn a living. Some of my best clients actually earn a whole living by buying foreclosures on the courthouse steps. Remember, foreclosure is the act of ending the business between the previous borrower, or whatever the contract is, and the bank or the people that rendered the service or the money. So I hope I've given you some information and some good wisdom on how to execute on the courthouse steps. If you need some more, just call me, I'm available. And also in the comments, let me know something else that